How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? All right. We're talking about employment after welding school. Where to go with all different kinds of ways you could actually do this. We have experts up here that are going to kind of help direct us. That's really sensitive, isn't it? She's a sensitive one, huh? All right. Right after welding school, it can be very, very confusing. So, Bob, what would be your advice? And everybody, please feel free to chime in at any time. What would be some of your advice to direct a student that may not know what aspect that they want to go into?
Don't be late. Don't fly United. Sorry about that, United. We talked about this numerous times. It's always that promptness, that's dependability. Ian and I had some really good conversations over the years about dependability. You got to be there. I mean, we can't plan work, we can't schedule work, we can't do things unless we have staff on board and make things flow. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we're suffering, that I've noticed. And we joke about my arrival yesterday being so late. Gee whiz, that was horrible. But I think this generation it's like a bunch of part-timers. I like to be places on time. I felt really bad yesterday when I walked up. I like to be there on time. I like to stay a little bit late. I like to do a complete job, go through the whole gamut. So be prepared, show up on time.
I would say probably for me, I sort of live my life this way, and I tell everyone that wants to listen the same thing is, don't tell me what you can do, show me what you can do. So let your work speak for yourself. That's the beauty of a trade. Any trade, you can always sort of like lay it on the line. You can show what you can do. You don't have to spend time talking about all the things you can do. Just work and let your work speak for itself. I think that's the most important thing.
Just me personally, I tell my students the first day of class that today is day one of your 20-week interview. So show me your work ethics. Work ethics is probably the biggest component. I mean, if you've got a passion and drive to learn how to weld, I can teach you how to weld. The same thing with an employer, but work ethics are going to go a lot farther. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think just like Bob said, to echo that, show up on time, do a little bit more than is expected of you, be reliable, be dependable. You could be the best welder out there, but if you don't show up for work, I'll take somebody that doesn't have the skills that's there every day. I'd go out and talk to employers all the time. Hey, man, what are the skills you're looking for that I could teach my program, be it tape measure, fit up, fabrication, material prep? He says, just send me a good person. 9 times out of 10, just send me a good person. Send me somebody that's honest, dependable, can show up to work, and is willing to work. So I think that's the biggest thing that you can do. Add to your resume, and then have your instructors backing for that. Because I could find my students with the work ethics, they'd be hired before the program was over, right? The rest of them are out looking for work because they didn't show those skills. They didn't show that need, that want while they were in class.
So mine is probably pride. Pride in your work. Pride is everything in your work. Show initiative. Be the first one to jump out in front of everybody. Try to lead them. Be a great example. Always do your best. Show up with a great learning attitude. Just listen to your older peers all the time. Find the smartest guy when you go to a fab shop. I mean, I was scared at my first fab shop. Didn't know. I was asking around, who was the smartest guy in this shop? Then I would go over there and just be a laborer, be the helper. I didn't have no work experience back in 2009. So I got taught by so much good things by this guy named Anastasio. I mean, that's the best way to get started because all these old tricks, they're dying. I mean, guys, we need to learn off that stuff before they all retire. It's coming fast, and we need to keep going on this. All right?
You gotta give her a mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One thing we used to say at the shipyard is hire for attitude and train for skill. So it kind of echoes the same sentiment that these guys are saying, and that's, you can be the smartest guy, the best welder out there, but if you have a crap attitude and you can't work with your team, you can't work for your boss, then nobody wants you. And that echoes everywhere else in the industry because your reputation really speaks for itself. So your attitude first and foremost and being there early, I think would be the two things that anybody would agree is crucial in this industry nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful skill to have, welding. You can go just about anywhere with it. I think for me and people I see around, just be willing to learn from other folks that have been in this and had a lot of time into it. And then chase down an opportunity. You never know where it might take you. I mean, I didn't think I'd be sitting in this chair today.
Okay. Don't forget to put the mics up to your mouth so we can hear you. So now, say you've already figured out the area of the industry that you want to go into, and you get the opportunity, you get the call for the interview. Even though you're being asked questions, you should also ask questions during the interview. What do you feel are some questions that you should be asking while you're being interviewed?
Too close. It's called sign.
You're going down there, Luke.
Yoda. More like Yoda.
At least do a little research. I mean, you got to look into the job you're applying for. And I've interviewed a lot of people at the college for various positions. As a department chair, I had to cover a lot of areas and move people around. And I was interviewing a gentleman one day. I mean, he had all the degrees. He had the suit, man. He had everything. And I could tell where he was going. And after about 5 minutes, I said, so where do you see our program in about 3 years in mechatronics? What's mechatronics? And I said, hey, thanks for coming in today. You know, do some background. I mean, you want to, it's not just any job, you know. You want to go in and, if you're applying for a job, you want this to be a position, or is this just a temporary fix of something? Is this just temporary income? You know, learn as much as you can. If I'm going to go interview with Jimmy, I want to know his background. I want to know what he does. I want to know if there's something along the line in my background or something that could be an asset to his organization. I want to know what it is, and I want to know how to talk about it and ease into it and maybe suggest it or talk around it or something. Have an intelligent conversation. But don't go in blind to a company as an easy fix. You're going to get picked apart.
You really got to do some prep. You really do.
I think probably one of the most important things that anyone can ask in an interview would be, you know, how can you ask back the question, right? So where am I going to advance in this position? You may be interviewing for one position, but there may be opportunity beyond the position that you're applying for. So by opening up with that question, be like, well, what else can I do? What other opportunities are there here? I listen to the podcast. Jimmy hear it all the time. We talk about when you go to interview and you talk about getting your CWI, and a lot of people, if that might not be on the list of job descriptions that you're applying for, but if you put that out there that, hey, yes, I understand this is just production MIG welding, but you know, I'm really interested in learning the following processes, that may open a door that might get you in that first door and then retained because they know that you're interested in picking up more skill inside that company.
Yeah, same thing. You got to think, when you go to sit down for a job interview, the employer is going to be interviewing you for that specific position to make sure you're a good fit for the company. You also want to ensure that they are a good fit for you. So you can go to glassdoor.com and you can research employee reviews. Okay, marketing is going to not tell the best truth of the company because they want to put themselves out there as number one. But if you can find employee reviews on that company, you'll find out exactly what's going on behind that door. When I got into teaching, I did that. I jumped on the first opportunity that was available for me, and probably after about 3-4 months, I went and checked the reviews on that, and they weren't too pretty. So prior to getting employment somewhere else, I did a whole lot of research, probably more research on them than they did on me. So I think that's one of the biggest things, especially if you want to advance yourself in the career. I mean, welding's a great opportunity, but there's a lot more you can do with it outside of running a bead, flipping your hood down, grinding, prepping, you know, day in and day out. You can start moving up that ladder. So, Echo, find out, you know, what opportunities are available. Will they send you for training? Will they invest in you? Just different things like that. Find out, you know, if there's anything else that you can do for that company that they'd be willing to allow you to afford you the opportunity.
All right, I'll say when I got out of school, I didn't have much money, so it would be always bring your tools, guys, in the car. Always have them on case, because 9 out of 10 times, guys, they're going to ask you, hey, you got your stuff with you, let's go take a weld test. Before that, if they have if they're on the phone with them, ask them hey, what type of welding you do? So if you know what type of welding they're doing, go start practicing in your garage, wherever. That's when I know that they were doing that, I went and bought the cheapest welding machine as I could, but like an old one, and just started practicing in my shop and got mentally ready for that test. So when I went in there, I could go ahead and bang that test out and be good with it. And also, if there's multiple jobs, go to them and learn from them and see what knowledge you can take with you. Even if you're not interested in that job, you're going to learn information off older people. You might like that job instead of this job. You're like, oh man, I love TIG welding. You know what I mean? Okay, I don't want to do that. I know enough about it. I'm going to go over here and learn from MIG, stick, and all that, and fitting off this other guy, because you've been doing TIG welding a lot. Always learn different trades, different skills, mechanics, diesel, tool and die maker. I mean, learn everything. More you open your mind to, more money you're going to get, more knowledge. Knowledge is key, guys, for sure.
A couple things I tell our students as far as asking questions. Number one would definitely be, this is an opportunity for you to show the employer you're going to give them some quality work for the time that they're paying you. So it's not really about what can you get out of a company, it's more what can the company get out of you. Because they're paying you, so that's what you're getting. You're getting their benefits, you're getting a steady job, so this is your time to show them that you're going to provide some quality time for them and some quality work. So I always tell students a couple things you can ask, and one of the most impressive things I've ever been asked in an interview was, what's your biggest problem and how can I help you with it? So just showing them that your attitude is focused on what their goals are, like what are your goals in the next year? How am I being evaluated? What's a regular day like for me? These are all pretty normal questions that any employer is going to be happy to see that you're already a company-minded person. You're already trying to figure out, like, how can I give you the most bang for your buck? So you're already paying me, so how do I make the best out of those dollars? You know, what's a problem? How can I fix it? Let me try to find some solutions for you before I even get in the door. Another thing I tell people is to check their social media, like, before you walk in the interview, because they're always posting about projects or something big that's being completed recently. So there's always cool things out there that are what we call low-hanging fruit, you know, that you can kind of grab and walk in the interview and talk about. So follow them on social media is another big thing, an easy thing that you can do right before the interview and ask questions about.
Yeah, absolutely. The research before you go in is critical. If you don't know what they're doing, what you got yourself into, you really shouldn't be there. And you want to take time to invest into what you're going after, you know, and there's a lot of distractions around. One thing I would say is bring your gear, be prepared to take a weld test, and leave the phone in the car. Don't have the minimal amount of distractions you can have around you, the better and more focused you're going to be on why you're there. And that is really to earn a job, understand what they do, and what opportunities you have with that organization. And that's bottom line for me.
I think social media is a big deal too, because not only do you want to follow them on social media, but you want to make sure that your social media account is pretty clean too. You know, your accounts are not as private as you would like to think. Employers can find stuff pretty easily that could end up costing you your job further down the road. And to kind of back up what you said, Man Cub, if you know that, you know, if you're going in for a TIG welding test and you've been MIG welding for a long time, you need to brush up on that stuff. You know, if you don't have a welder in your garage, social media, again, find somebody local in your area that could possibly help you out, that you could come over for a couple hours at least and sit there and brush up on your skills to get things, you know, up to par.
Yeah, that's right, Jimmy.
Absolutely. What about resume building? What about, you know, what are some of the things that if you're hiring somebody you want to see on their resume?
I think it's very important that students start out getting used to doing resumes early. Sometimes I've noticed that the students try to put them together at the last minute, and they start putting down a lot of flash, and they're overwhelmed, and the content has no flow. It doesn't make sense. Keep it brief. I try to turn it around. I mean, we actually have classes and coursework in actually writing resumes and preparing. We do mock interviews and all kinds of stuff, but just keep it simple, direct, make it factual. You don't need to put a whole lot of flash behind it and everything. Just load it up correctly and keep adding to it. You know, I need to go back and look at mine. I don't know what it says here for the past 2 or 3 years. I need to add in there that I've been hanging out with Ian, and you know, That's a cool thing. But, you know, seriously, keep it, get used to doing it. As a young person, you need to get used to doing it. You need to be aware of the styles of resumes, what HR people look at, you know, what's acceptable, and go from there.
Yeah, when I was teaching high school, I used to have our kids all do the same thing. Number one, you build your resume for the job you're applying for. That's step one. So there'll be a different resume for every job. If I'm applying for a job with Bob at his college, I'm going to write one style of resume. If I'm applying for a job for me, and you want to be on TV, it's going to be a very different resume. If I'm applying for, that's just the way. That's the first lesson I would say is you got to build a resume for the job that you want to apply for. But on top of the resume, I tell everyone, you got to start packing a portfolio together. It's so easy nowadays. It's just simple either on a computer or on your phone. You got to, if you do something really cool, like a project that you were part of, you take pictures, take notes, record all that information, and just put it away, because the resume will get you in the door, may get you the first interview. But when you're in that interview and talking, he may say, well, the person interviewing may say, well, show me something really cool that you've done. And if all you can say is, well, hold on, I may have, let me tell you about this story. One time I went to Alaska, and they don't want to hear that. But if you can say, well, here's a picture of I worked on this offshore rig, or here's that'll show that you're sort of like the next step. So that'd be my advice. Resume for every job, and start building a portfolio.
Definitely. How many students do we have here? Perfect. How many of you are taking advantage of your Career Resource Center? A lot less hands. That's what I thought. How many of you have a Career Resource Center at your school that are not utilizing that? They stay up to date. That is their job. That is what they are trained to do, to help you make a good resume to gain employment, because most schools are valued or critiqued, graded off their job placement rates, not just how many people complete the program, but they want to see the success stories. So if you're not taking advantage of the Career Resource Center, your career officer, go in there, talk to them, start a conversation. They have resume classes. I used to do resume classes specifically for my students, right? Check the alignment, check your spelling. Do not use LOLs and ROFLs and different acronyms that you guys would use on social media or text. Don't type the resume up on your phone. I mean, open up a Word document, go in there and make sure everything is nice and aligned. Check your font, check your sizing, spacing, all that good stuff, because the average person that's going to run your interview, they work for HR. So you can show that you have attention to detail just in your resume. They look at your resume for about 10 seconds before it goes into the trash can or the pile of potential candidates, okay? So that's one thing I would say is use those career resources. Do not pay somebody to write your resume, okay? If you do that, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna just build you up to be something that you're not. And then be honest during the interview process. If you're not familiar with something, don't fake the funk, because they're gonna be able to smell that, right? So be honest in your resume. Anything that you put on your resume is fair game. Okay, I can ask you about that. You said you're proficient with GTAW. Okay, tell me exactly what GTAW is. And you're like, I probably shouldn't have put that in there. I'm not as, everything that you put on that resume is fair game, right? So be open and honest. That's just kind of a look into who you are. If you're lying to me during the resume process, I can't trust you as an employee. So take advantage of the career resource officer, and put everything together nice and easy. One thing I also like to say is print out on high quality paper. Okay, you print out, put a little bit more attention to detail. Have your resume available in a PDF format so that you can email it, and all of your context and alignment, all that stuff is going to stay the same as when you email it to when they receive it. Keep some hard copies, because you never know who you're going to run into. How many of you students have resumes on you right now? One. You're at the world's largest metal fabrication expo, well, North America. You could be passing out resumes right now while you're here, networking, making opportunities. So that's one thing. Keep a stack of them in your car or in your briefcase, and pass those out as needed.
I say bring your certifications. Always bring your certification, guys. One time I left them at home. It cost me an interview, it cost me a job, because talking don't mean nothing. You show me that you could weld, show me you could dance. Talking, anyone could talk. And since we're young, I'm young, they don't believe if you did all this stuff. Show them that you did all this stuff. Take pictures like Ian was saying. You want to just, hey, I could do this, I could weld, I could machine. They want a person like that, especially when they're young. Do every trade, even if you're like, oh, sorry, thanks, Jace. Even if you're TIG welding, stick welding, machining, write all that stuff down, but take pictures, show them. show the name of the shops that you worked at, what years. Even if you take pictures of your work inside the shop, always do that. I mean, always show proof and always be honest. Don't lie. Don't show off and be like, oh, I'm such a great welder and all that. Be humble, be honest, and always keep your mind open to learn something new all the time.
This is a loaded one for me because this is the bulk of what I do all day, so I can really give you guys a lot of tips. But one of the bigger things I would say is, especially if you're a student fresh out of school, you probably have never had an actual welding job before. So you need to list any job that you've had, especially if it's something like landscaping, because then you're demonstrating to me you can work outside, right? You're already showing me you have good work ethic, you can work in the elements, you can work outside, you're comfortable in bad weather. Another thing I would say is put welder on there somewhere in the first like 6 inches of the page, because otherwise you're not really going to know based off of all your previous jobs. Like if you've worked for your dad's company or you've worked for some, Johnny's Pizza before, nothing says welder in there. So how am I supposed to know that's a job you're looking for and you're qualified for it if that's all you've applied to, if you don't have welder on there anywhere? So if you've got certifications, make sure they're on your resume and listed. Another thing I say is email a copy of it to yourself. 100% do not send a Word document out to your employer. Save it as a PDF and email it to yourself. You can get jobs standing here talking to people. They want to see your resume. If it's in your email, all you got to do is forward it. So it's super easy. Even if you don't have something on hand, keep a copy on you. And most people, the easiest thing to do is just email it to yourself. So I always tell people, save a PDF, email it to yourself so you have it on hand, and keep welder in there somewhere in the top part of your resume, because otherwise a lot of times we don't know that's, other than the fact that you applied to a welding job, that you're actually qualified for it, until I get to the bottom of your resume. So keep those things in mind.
Absolutely. To add to that, having a portfolio that you have access to, and you can get that into a PDF and share that with them if they ask for it, or you can, produce it. That's truly important. Having the documentation to back up, the stuff that you have put down on your resume. And then I think too, look outside of, the welding a little bit. If you did machining or something that relates, why not include that as well? And that's, anything you can do to bolster is going to be important.
What about the age-old debate of union versus non-union? Bob?
You want me to tell my experiences with that?
Yeah.
All right, I'll be very honest with you. I started out in the 70s. I graduated in 76. I went to 2 years of drafting and design school. I was still working at the time, working with my dad as well in the oil field. And there was a local, I'm sorry, I'll back up a little bit. I also went to Oregon Institute of Technology in Klamath Falls, Oregon. I worked as a construction millwright. I came back to the Midwest, started working with my dad a little bit more in the oil field, and I started working in fab shops around Ponca City, Oklahoma. And I tried to get into the local union. At the time it was 767, and I couldn't get in. I didn't have a brother or an uncle or a dad. I didn't have any relations in this union, and I thought, well, that's kind of not right. It's in their mission statement not to do that. One of those deals, passed up numerous times. I only had one person really bucking for me, and it was kind of frustrating. I know I could do the work. I know I was accurate in my dimensions. I was accurate in quality, and it was one of those deals. Just kept getting passed up, and it was at that time in the I do a lot of contract project work and stuff. I do a project, get laid off, and I just got kind of frustrated. I had an offer from a buddy of mine out in Las Vegas. I'd been into professional bowling for a long time, and I just took another path at that moment. And he made me an offer to come out and work in the pro shop out of his pro shop in Las Vegas, of which I was very familiar with. And so I did. I sold my house in Oklahoma and moved out, and I got into the professional bowling game for quite a while. I came back to fabricating, but I couldn't get in. I've worked non-union. I've enjoyed it. My pay scale at the time, by doing all these different project works, people were familiar with me. I was within $1 or $2 of union wages anyway. I wasn't uncomfortable, but it's just, that was my path, that was my experience, and I kind of bailed out and said I'll go do something else for a while. As soon as I left, they opened the floodgates and let everybody in. Timing, I guess, you know.
It's all timing.
It's timing. Anyway, that's just my personal experience. I put a lot of my students into a Wichita 441. I know the weld trainers, I know the business agents. I don't have anything either way of non-union, union. That's not an issue with me. I know I tried. I support them in every right. I'll try to support anybody's job shop, quality personnel with my students that are graduating. Or if I went back to work, I'd do the same thing. Actually, I am at work, aren't I?
I think the union is no different than the job itself. It's going to be a different fit for every person. I've worked union, I've worked non-union, I've hired non-union. I think it just boils down to, is it a good fit for you? If it's a good fit for you, some people are all about it. Some people, they get that patch and they're super proud and they live or die by that. Other people jump in and out and play both sides of the fence, and some people never want to go in. I think it's a personal choice, and that's a decision that you guys have to make. You might find a union job that you think is great and you'll work it for the rest of your life, or you may never join a union. I think that's just how it works. I think it's different for every single person.
I'm not really biased one way or the other. I've worked a structural steel background. I've worked non-union, and I worked for Ironworkers 808 out of Orlando, Florida. Had I not gotten into education and welding training, I'd probably still be with the Ironworkers 808. I'm not 100% pro-union because they have their positives and negatives just like everybody else. And just to echo what Ian and Bob's saying, it's got to be a good fit for the individual. Once again, that goes back to doing your research on the employer. Is that something you want to get into? It was great. I mean, our local did apprenticeship training. They took it very serious. It's one of the top-rated ironworker training facilities in the United States. So I received a good education, rigging, welding, structural, rebar tying. Not fun, but I mean, I learned how to do it. So it all depends on what you want to do, where you want to go. And then you have to be okay with, if somebody's there with you and they're not pulling their weight and they're a journeyman, they're getting the same amount of money you are. So mentally you have to be prepared for that, right? So it all depends, if it's a good fit for the individual or not. So that's kind of my take on it.
So back in May of 2009 when I got out of Hobart, but right before I graduated from Hobart, there was a Boilermakers 154. I did 3.5 years, 4 years in that. And my town, it was a small town, Smithfield, Ohio. There was just people working out of the Boilermakers 154. They're like, my dad was talking to him like, hey, take ASME Section 9 test. So when I was at Hobart, I was going to night classes. So I paid Hobart to take an ASME Section 9 test, $350. I took 2 different ones. And since I got that certification passed, I did 2 tensile pulls and 2 bends. And that certification helped me to get in the Boilermakers. I didn't have no friends, no families there, nothing at all. I showed up on their doorsteps in Pittsburgh, PA, about an hour from there I lived. Just walked in there with all my certifications. They weren't interested in me at first at all. Came back again. They started seeing my initiative coming there. After they accepted me, the first 2 months, I didn't get no calls, no nothing. But I showed up every day for 10 hours, and they had like a little welding lab outside in the snow, in the rain. I'd be out there running a welder every day if I'm not working at my dad's shop. I was working at my dad's shop, that's it. I mean, if I wasn't working there, I was up there showing my initiative and learning. I mean, as soon as they seen that, boom. Still wasn't welding. I was actually doing stuff for the carpenter union, through Boilermakers, building scaffolds. I mean, I was taking any job I could get so I could show them that I could do anything. I mean, that's what took off for me. That's about it. Yeah, it was worth it. I mean, I seen everything. I mean, I traveled the U.S. It was beautiful. Met so many smart guys. I mean, took me under their wing. Been to power plants. I mean, it's incredible, the power plants. I mean, you'll see stuff. I mean, it's so big, you feel like an ant in them. I mean, it's incredible. You see the turbines, you see all the cool reactors. I mean, it's like, wow, you get all cold chills just walking through the plants because it's such an amazing feeling just going through there.
I'm with these guys. I think there's good unions, there's bad unions. Some of them have more benefits than others. It's really what you're looking for, just like you would look for in an employer. So some unions have great educational benefits. They have great apprenticeship programs, and they're solid people. But there's bad eggs in every in every basket. I think everybody agrees with that. So you kind of have to. You do have to do some research, but you have to determine if that's what's right for your lifestyle right now. If you're young and you want to get after it, and all you want is per diem, and you want to travel, sometimes unions are great for that, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they want to kind of hang you out in an apprenticeship program and work your way up, and a lot of their jobs are local. So maybe that's not for you right now, but it may be for you longer term down the road. They do have great insurance for a lot of people, so when you start a family, maybe that's something you want to look into there. Maybe you do want a lot of education right now while you're young and you want to build. And so some of these unions have great education benefits. So I'm not pro or, I don't really have one preference on the one way or the other, but I think you need to figure out what works for your lifestyle right now. So you need to talk to some people that work for the union and do some evaluation and figure out what are you getting with your union dues from that union that benefits you in the long run. So hopefully if you have some goals in mind, you can kind of evaluate what benefits they have that work for you right now. If they don't, don't be afraid to move on. It's okay. There's other things out there and you can always come back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding the right fit, I think, is the main thing. You want to be happy at the end of the day. You're doing something you love. You like welding. Why not be happy doing it? You have to, you might have to test the waters. And to do that, you just got to take the plunge, check it out, do your homework, and really just try to understand what each is all about and what they have to offer for you.
I've talked to some students who were very surprised once they got out or found out that you're not going to be working a 40-hour week when you get into this. This is a misconception I think that some students have. Have you dealt with any students that were shocked with about how many hours you were actually going to work, or how often you were going to be not home with your family, and the sacrifices that you actually have to make to really become successful in this business?
I have had numerous occasions where a young person would come back to me and say, gee, I wish I would have been a little less of a class clown and paid attention, because everything you said was absolutely true. Show up 2 minutes late, you might as well go home. Do it twice and you're done for 3 days with no option of overtime for that week or that pay period. And they go, it's serious. It's everything you said. I read some books here over the summertime. It's like, if you want to be successful, work a half a day. You can pick the first half or the second half, 12 hours. Some students get the misconception that their job's going to be right across the street and they can part-time it and it's cool, I think that's how they grew up. Us old-timers, we know that you got to put in a day's worth of it. So, there's young people that obviously have that good work ethic. That's not a question with them. I think it's how they're growing up these days, and I really think that some students are mature. They take it seriously. They know they're going to have to put some hours into it. They want to work long hours. They want the opportunity for overtime. So, I've had some really, really good students that they know that the long hours is, that's where they want to be. They want to be successful. I've had some that's like, I'll find me something part-time. I'm good with that. I don't do part-time jobs, so.
I'm on TV, so I don't work at all, Jimmy. No, I think just to spin off something you said, Bob, it's one thing to remember, and I always tell myself, I have an 18-year-old in college, so I'm to blame for this. Everyone says this generation of young kids, man, we raised them. We gave them trophies for showing up, so it's our fault too. But I think that, it is funny because, as I said, I'm on TV, so I don't work, but it's not true. I actually do work. But I think every job, if you get a job that you like, it really doesn't matter if you work 8 or 12 hours. You'll work the job. I love my job. I've been very fortunate to have many. I've never, when I was a mechanic, I liked my job. When I was a teacher, I liked my job. And who doesn't like being on TV? So, but I still work. When we're doing deadline, get a car done, we had to get a car done to get it out to SEMA. It's 20 hours a day, the last 10 days before SEMA, and then it goes on a trailer, and we haul it out to Johnson Valley. John was with me, And man, it's when you work those 20-hour days, you hate life, even though you're working, building cool stuff for yourself and for a TV show. But when you're dropping that sucker into third gear in Johnson Valley, California, doing 86 mile an hour across the desert, you forget about those 20 hours. And it's no different just any job. When you get done the project, like you were saying, a power plant and these big plants, when you look back and you can say, holy cow, I freaking built this, you're going to forget about those 12-hour, 18-hour days. You will, trust me.
I kind of let them know up front, when you get into class, it's not going to be a 40-hour work week when you're done. I have students that graduate, we go from a 24-hour week program where they got Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays off, and they step right into a job where they're putting 72 hours a week in. I kind of let them know ahead of time, hey, this is what you're signing up for. I don't sugarcoat at the beginning of class. Tell them welding sucks, everything's sharp, hot, and heavy, so you have to have a passion to do what we do, right? You have to love what you do. Kind of like what they were saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So be prepared for those hours. I mean, you're going to put in a lot of hours. You're going to build a lot of cool stuff. You're going to reap the benefits. Do it while you're young, but you're not going to walk in and punch the time clock 8 to 5, and walk on out. And then be prepared to travel, not just travel around the country. I mean, I haven't had a job where I've had an under 1 hour commute one way since 2005. So be prepared to get in your car and drive somewhere to get the job that you want. A lot of students, they don't want to travel. They want something right next door to their house. Well, you better move where the work's at. So just be prepared for that as well.
Yeah. I say, think about this. Can't think right now. I say, go when you're in welding school, put your helmet down, and stay in that booth all day. Burn them rods. Burn that filler wire all day, nonstop. Leave that hood down. Don't mess around. Don't talk to your friends. When you're in there, weld. You're there to learn. You want to be basically almost 100% when you get out of welding school, because when you want to go into a job, you want to be basically good at welding. You don't even want to think about how to run that weld. You just want to be natural. Leave your phones down. Just weld all day. You're there. Either your mom paid for it, your dad. Just don't waste their money. Always focus on the school. In high school, I didn't focus on school. I just didn't like it, so I wish I took that serious. Everything made sense with my hands. So I started noticing that when I was like 18, 19. I never told anyone I was in mechanics. I grew up in my dad's machine shop. I was always afraid telling people, oh, I'm dirty and greasy. I was a prep in high school. Now I don't even give a crap anymore. Be yourself, be who you are, and be proud of it all the time. That's one mistake I wish I never did, just lie to people about that. Always just show who you are.
Time is money, so it's a good consequence or a bad consequence. So you can either look at it like you're about to get a lot of overtime and make bank, or you can look at it like you're investing in yourself and your skill set, and you're investing in your coworkers. So you're building a reputation when you hit 40 hours and then you keep going. Your boss is paying attention. So if you have a crap attitude and you're not prepared, you don't want to be there, you're complaining, the weather's bad, you got to go home, girlfriend's calling, mom's calling, whatever, there's always an excuse. It matters after 40 hours. Your reputation will connect you to your next job way faster than your resume will, or any website, Indeed, or whatever you want to call it. Any of your friends, some of you got dirtbag friends, don't network with them. Be careful about that. So your reputation is everything, and this is when you build it. And when you start hitting past 40 hours, like he was saying, you really see people for who they are. If you got a bad work ethic, it'll pop out at 40 hours, I can tell you that right now. And your boss is paying attention, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, putting the hours in is one thing, and I think a lot of coming fresh out of school, I remember being, welding maybe for a few hours in the day, you go eat lunch and you don't come back for a few hours or whatever it was. But when you're walking around on the site and you got a hard hat on and you're not just welding the whole time, maybe you're doing material prep, moving things around, that's a whole nother ball game. 12, 14 hours a day. Be prepared and understand that it may not always be just welding 100% of the time. And that's an important piece to take a look at as well.
That's all the questions that I have. So we're going to take a little bit of a unscripted turn here, and I'm going to open it up to all of you out there. Do you have any questions for any of our panelists up here? Anybody? Raise your hand. Wow, you guys took it all in. All right. Well, cool. Well, please give everybody a round of applause. Thank you so much for coming to the Employment After Welding School panel here at the ESAB University, and thank you very much.
Thanks for coming out, everyone.
Thank you.